What is going on, everybody? NFL Mock Draft 5.0 is here. If you've been watching my previous mock drafts throughout draft season, just know that this one will be pretty similar. 3 rounds with trades. Usually I go over all of the trades involving players already in the NFL before the mock draft, and then any draft day trades I will talk about during the draft. In today's mock, there are less trades with players, and there are more draft day trades inside the draft. So I think that should make things interesting. And let's talk about some of the players on the move. The first player being traded here is Desean Watts, and I have him going to the Carolina Panthers in exchange for Carolina's next 3 first-round picks, including pick 8 this year. Their next 2 second-rounders, including pick 39 this year, Jeremy Chinn and Teddy Bridgewater. This is the same trade I had in my last mock draft, but the only difference is Teddy is now in the deal. I don't think Teddy's going to be a deal breaker for Carolina. I think they'll have no problem giving him up in order to get Deshaun Watson. I do believe Watson will be moved. I think there is a solid chance he could stay in Houston, whether he wants to or not. It doesn't seem like they want to trade him, and I don't really blame the Texans. I wouldn't trade him either. But eventually, Watson's really going to start to get leverage, and the Texans may have to trade him. I think Carolina's going to be one of those teams who's going to be willing to pull out all the stops in order to get a guy like Deshaun Watson. And if you can get Watson without trading Brian Burns, I think this will be a win for the Panthers and for Houston. Obviously, you get your big haul, and you get someone who can be a serviceable starting quarterback for the time being in Teddy Bridgewater, along with all of the draft picks and Jeremy Chinn. Just like my last mock draft, I do have Orlando Brown being traded to the LA Chargers, but this time the return to Baltimore is different. Last time I had the Ravens acquiring Mike Williams along with the Chargers' second-round pick, which I think is like pick 47, I want to say. But now it'll just be the Chargers' first-round pick, which is 13. I think this is a better haul for Baltimore. Williams is on the last year of his contract, and you're getting a really, really solid pick. For the Chargers, I know this may look like an overpay, but let's look at it this way. Would you rather a proven high-level offensive tackle who's still young, or would you rather take a gamble on a prospect like, say, Christian Darrisaw? Darrisaw is a very good prospect who I like a lot, but I think you would prefer Orlando Brown because you know that he is a legit player in the NFL. So I think this is a very, very good deal for both sides. I know the Chicago Bears are heavily linked to Russell Wilson, but I just don't see it happening. I don't think Russell Wilson will be getting traded, and they're going to have to settle on Sam Darnold, although Darnold's a very solid player in his own right, especially if he's given a proper chance. This is the same trade I had in my last mock, Sam Darnold for the Bears' second-round pick, which is number 52. I think the Jets will be picking a quarterback second overall, and the Bears don't have a legit starting quarterback. I think Sam Darnold can be that, and it's worth it for the Bears to take a gamble on a guy who once was regarded as an elite quarterback prospect. On to the mock draft itself. Remember, the picks highlighted in green are the picks that have been traded away. So starting at pick 1, I had the Jacksonville Jaguars selecting Trevor Lawrence. Not really going to talk about that because there's not much to explain. Zack Wilson, quarterback, BYU, going to the Jets at 2. I've had Zack Wilson going here in every mock draft since January. I think there is a shot that the Jets do like Justin Fields over Wilson, although I probably will have Wilson ranked higher on my personal board. I think it's very close between Wilson and Fields, and I really think he could go either way. I don't think the Jets would be making a bad pick here if they were to pick Fields, but I do think Wilson is slightly the better prospect, and I think most scouts in the NFL would agree. So at pick 3, the Miami Dolphins. They could go Jamar Chase, they could go Penei Sewell, but I think they would actually prefer to trade down if they could. And there is a suitor. The San Francisco 49ers will be moving up from pick 12 to pick 3. Miami will be receiving the Niners' first and second rounders this year, being picks 12 and 44. The Dolphins will also receive San Francisco's first rounder next year in 2022, and their second rounder in 2023. So in total, 2 firsts and 2 seconds going from San Francisco to Miami, and the Niners will be getting their franchise quarterback, Justin Fields, out of Ohio State. We know Kyle Shanahan is a quarterback guru. I think he'd love to work with a young player like Justin Fields or Trey Lance if he got that opportunity. There are some rumors that the league likes Trey Lance more than Justin Fields as a prospect. I don't really buy that. I think Justin Fields is the better player, although Trey Lance does have absurd upside, so I do get it at the same time. But I think Justin Fields is going to be picked higher. I think the Niners would love to go ahead and get a guy like Justin Fields. There is no Jimmy Garoppolo trade here. I couldn't really find one that made sense. And I don't think that's a bad thing for the Niners to hold on to Jimmy G right now, because I don't think Justin Fields is fully ready. I don't know how much Jimmy G is really going to want to try in San Francisco if they have his replacement on the roster, but I think they could try to find a way to make it all work. Falcons at 4, so the top 3 quarterbacks are off the board, and they can pick pretty much anybody else. I'm not saying Atlanta should do this, but I think teams are really going to like Kyle Pitts, the tight end, wide receiver, the weapon out of the University of Florida. I would probably pick Trey Lance here if I was Atlanta. I think Trey Lance is worthy of going this high, and I think Atlanta would be a good situation. Have him sit for a year or two behind Matt Ryan, a good mentor, a smart offensive-minded coach in Arthur Smith. I think this is a good landing spot for a rookie quarterback like Trey Lance. But I do think there is a noticeable gap between Fields and Lance, and I'm not sure Atlanta is going to be totally sold on the North Dakota State product. Kyle Pitts is obviously a very unique player. I know he is technically a tight end, and you don't see tight ends going in the top 4, but we've never seen a prospect like Kyle Pitts before, and I think his upside and his uniqueness is so intriguing, and I think a team could take him as high as 4. Bengals at 5. This pick is a no-brainer. You run this up to the commissioner, Penei Sewell, the offensive tackle out of Oregon. This is a no-brainer here for the Cincinnati Bengals. They don't even have to think about it. At 6, the Philadelphia Eagles had their choice of the wide receivers, and I have them selecting Ja'Marr Chase. I think Chase will and should be the first receiver off the board. He obviously was extraordinary as a sophomore in LSU's national championship season. Opted out this past year, but I think he's a really, really good prospect, and I think this pick makes a lot of sense for the Eagles. At 7, the Lions. Obviously, I am a Lions fan. I think in a perfect world, there's a trade-back scenario here for Detroit, but I couldn't really find a suitor that makes sense. So the Lions are going to stay at 7 and select Jalen Waddle, the wide receiver out of Alabama. If we do stay at 7 and the board plays like this, Waddle would probably be my pick. I'd be very happy with this. I think Jalen Waddle's an extraordinary player. I have him ranked a little bit ahead of Devontae Smith. If we pick Smith here, I wouldn't be upset at all. I think they're both extraordinary, but I do think there is a very solid chance that Waddle could be taken before his fellow Alabama teammate. Houston Texans at 8. No more Desean Watts. They could go Trey Lance. They could do that, but I really think they want to build up the core of their team. How do you do that? By being a physical team in the trenches. Rashad Slater, the offensive lineman out of Northwestern, he's versatile. He can play tackle, he can play guard, and he can even play center. I think he makes a lot of sense here for the Houston Texans. I think they should build on the inside out, meaning that they should try to focus on the trenches, get a guy like Rashad Slater here at 8, continue to build up your offensive and defensive lines, be a tough, gritty, physical football team, and I think this pick makes a ton of sense for the Texans. We've got ourselves a lot of trades here within these next 8 picks. Starting at 9, I had the Washington football team moving up with the Denver Broncos to select quarterback Trey Lance out of North Dakota State. The Broncos, moving down 10 picks, will receive Washington's next 2 second-round picks. So that would be the 51st pick this year, along with a future second, and obviously pick 19. So Washington gets their franchise quarterback without having to give up an extra first-round pick other than their selection this year. I think this makes a lot of sense for Washington, but my only question is, who's going to be the starting quarterback there next year? I don't think Trey Lance is ready to be a starter. I mean, Taylor Heineke, Kyle Allen, they're maybe sign a free agent like a Ryan Fitzpatrick, I suppose. But I would rather see Trey Lance, for his sake, go somewhere where he really certainly won't start this year, like Atlanta. But I think Washington hopefully will figure out how to manage him right and potentially develop him to his upside. Dallas Cowboys at 10. They have their choice of the top 2 corners in this draft class. I have them selecting Caleb Farley out of Virginia Tech. I think Farley has arguably a higher ceiling than any defensive player in this class. I think that's a legit statement to make. He's not as pro-ready as Patrick Surtain II. I think Surtain is definitely the safer pick here. Maybe Dallas does want to go safe. They just want to get someone who they know can be a quality starter day one. But Caleb Farley has freakish athleticism, a converted wide receiver. He did not play this past season for Virginia Tech. He opted out. But I think Farley's upside is really, really special. And I think here at 10, it'd be hard for Dallas to pass him up. Giants at 11, select Micah Parsons, linebacker out of Penn State. I think there are a number of different ways the Giants could go here. They could look at a playmaker, Devontae Smith, still on the board. Obviously, defense. You could look at someone on the defensive line. All the edge rushers are still available. Obviously, linebacker. I think Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah would be a fine pick here. But Micah Parsons is a really, really good linebacker prospect. He's very athletic. The production at Penn State in his first 2 seasons before opting out this past season has been really, really incredible. There are some character question marks with Micah Parsons, but a lot of that isn't really proven. So if you feel comfortable with the young man you're adding into your locker room in Micah Parsons, then I think this is a fine pick here. At 12, obviously the Dolphins acquired this pick by trading down from pick 3 with San Francisco, and they select Devontae Smith, a wide receiver out of Alabama. So would you rather a guy like Penei Sewell or Jamar Chase at 3, or this scenario where you get Devontae Smith at 12, 2 additional seconds, and a future first? I think this scenario is certainly the better option for Miami Dolphins for getting a very good wide receiver prospect in Devontae Smith, who's not that much worse than Jamar Chase, and you're getting a boatload of draft picks. So I think the Miami Dolphins have really played this perfectly, and I think this would be an awesome scenario for them. Here at 13, this is the pick from the Orlando Brown trade, which we discussed earlier. The Baltimore Ravens select Elijah Vera Tucker, the offensive lineman out of USC. Vera Tucker is a very versatile player. A lot of people believe he is the best guard in this draft, but he can also play tackle. I think the Ravens have holes at both guard and tackle with Orlando Brown gone, and they do need help on the interior of their offensive line. I think this pick would make a ton of sense. I feel like I've been undervaluing Vera Tucker in my mock drafts. I've had him usually going towards the later part of the first round, but I could see him going here in the top 15. We've got another trade at 14. I think the Minnesota Vikings are in a prime position to trade down because there aren't really any clear picks for them. And the Vikings are a team who really likes to hoard up on as much late picks as possible. And there's a very good cornerback prospect still on the board. Patrick Surtain II probably should not have fallen this far. And it's the Indianapolis Colts who will be moving up 7 selections with the Vikings. Minnesota will be receiving a future 3rd-round pick. The Colts already gave up their 3rd-rounder this year in the Wentz trade. And Minnesota will also be receiving a 4th-rounder this year. So Minnesota adds 2 mid-round picks, including a 3rd next year, just to move down 7 spots. And the player I had the Vikings getting at 21, there's a good chance he would have been the pick here at 14. So this really works out for Minnesota. And for the Colts, you jump up, you get your guy. Surtain probably should not have fallen this far, and the Colts will capitalize. New England at 15, I have them standing pat, selecting Mac Jones, quarterback Alabama. I think he could go earlier than this. I think he could go later than this. But New England makes a ton of sense. The Patriots did just re-sign Cam Newton this morning. I am recording this Friday afternoon. This will obviously be up Saturday. But Cam Newton has been re-signed on a 1-year contract, but I don't think that means Cam Newton's totally going to be the starter. And I think if Mac Jones is here, I think New England's really going to consider it. I wouldn't be surprised to see them pull the trigger here. I think Mac Jones certainly has a much lower ceiling than really any of the top 4 quarterback prospects, but he's a very safe player. Doesn't have the physical gifts, but that's what we saw of Tom Brady in New England. He doesn't have the physical gifts, but he has the intangibles and the accuracy. I'm not saying Mac Jones is the next Tom Brady, but his skill set is closer to Tom Brady than any of the other top 5 quarterbacks in this class. And again, I have Mac Jones as my QB5. I think the 4 quarterbacks picked ahead of them are better prospects, but I think that Mac Jones here in New England would be a really good fit. And then at 16, we've got ourselves another trade. This is the exact same trade I had in my last mock draft. The Chicago Bears moving up 4 spots, giving Arizona the 20th pick, a 6th-rounder, and a future 3rd in order to get Christian Darrisaw, who probably should not be on the board here at 16. Chicago needs help on the offensive line. They certainly want to help protect Sam Darnold. And I think this would be a very good scenario here for the Bears. You get a talented quarterback in Darnold, and you get a really, really good tackle prospect in Christian Darrisaw. For the Cardinals, you move down 4 spots. You add a day 3 pick this year, and you add a day 2 pick next year. I think that's pretty good value for Arizona. Las Vegas at 17 will be selecting Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, linebacker, safety hybrid out of Notre Dame. He does so many different things for a defense. He's such a versatile player. I think the Raiders would really love to have a guy like Owusu-Koramoah. I think this is good value. I could totally see him going higher than this. And as a Lions fan, I would love to trade down, say in the teens, get a guy like Owusu-Koramoah. I think that would be a perfect scenario for my team. But since that doesn't happen, Raiders fans, you get to enjoy him instead. I think this would be a home run selection for Vegas. Dolphins at 18, they're in an interesting spot. They had that really nice trade earlier, got Devontae Smith at 12. And they're going to be selecting the first edge rusher off the board. They had their choice of all the edge rushers, and I have them selecting Gregory Rousseau out of Miami. I think he was the highest ceiling for any edge rusher in this class, was extraordinary as a redshirt freshman in 2019. Did not play this past season due to opting out, but Rousseau has all the physical gifts. He has all the upside. Obviously, he's a little bit raw, but he only has 1 year of collegiate experience. That's what you would expect. If he can develop, then this would be a home run selection for Miami. And with this pick, that kind of leaves a domino effect here, and the run on edge rushers is really gearing up. Broncos at 19, they move down with Washington. I have them selecting J.C. Horn, cornerback out of South Carolina. I think this is a nice pick for Denver. They do have a hole at corner. Would you rather Caleb Farley or Patrick Surtain at 9, or would you rather J.C. Horn here at 19 and 2 additional second-round picks? Give me the latter. I think this would be a very good scenario for Denver. You get a corner prospect who's a little bit worse than those guys, but you get 2 additional second-round picks, so I think this would be great for them. Cardinals at 20, same pick I gave them last time. Jalen Phillips, the edge rusher out of Miami. My opinion, he is the most polarizing player in this class. I know that's strong words, but I mean, talent-wise, he's not only the best edge rusher in this class, but arguably the best defensive prospect. But there is a lot of medical issues. He had to medically retire from football at UCLA. Then he got another opinion, was cleared, transferred to Miami, and had an awesome season this past year. But the medical question marks are concerning, so you have to realize that you're taking a huge risk here. But if Jalen Phillips can stay healthy, this is a steal. 21, the Minnesota Vikings select Kwity Paye, edge rusher out of Michigan. The Vikings pass rush was very bad last season, albeit without Danielle Hunter. Hunter is back, but you're going to need more, and I think Kwity Paye here would be good value. Titans at 22. This is a player who I have not had mocked in the first round yet, but I do think he'll be a first rounder. Jason Oweh out of Penn State. This guy is an absolute freak. This guy, as an edge rusher, is a legit 4.3 speed guy. I mean, Penn State had their pro day the other day. His 40 time was in the 4.3s. This guy is a freak athlete off the edge. The production at Penn State wasn't really there. He did not register a single sack this year. But, I mean, with his athletics upside and his traits, he's not falling out of the first round. Tennessee's going to take a gamble here, but if it pays off, then we're getting an athlete that we've never really seen before at the edge rusher position. Jets at 23 select Rashad Bateman. This is phenomenal value. I think he's a top 15 player in this class. There's a part of me who almost wants to rank him ahead of Devontae Smith on my wide receiver board. This is a great selection here for the Jets. You get yourselves a legit perimeter threat on the outside for Zack Wilson. 24, the Steelers, they need help on the offensive line. And I have them selecting Tevin Jenkins, a mean bully on the offensive line. I mean, in the Texas game, he just annihilated Joseph Osayad, a legit first-round prospect. And I mean, Tevin Jenkins is an in-your-face type of player. And I think the Steelers are getting a really fun and intriguing offensive lineman. He has a little bit of work to do, but I mean, he brings that physicality and toughness you look for in an offensive lineman. Let's round out the first round starting at 25. In my last mock, I think I had the Jaguars picking Trayvon Moehrig with their first second rounder. Well, that's not going to happen this time. You're going to have to select him a little bit earlier. And I think Trayvon Moehrig has really cemented himself as the first safety off the board. Very talented player. The Jags have a big hole at safety. And I think this pick makes a lot of sense. Curious to see what Jacksonville does in the draft other than pick 1, obviously. At 26, welcome to the first round, Greg Newsome II. The corner out of Northwestern had a great pro day, ran a really good 40 time, and I think there's a legit shot. He's the fourth corner off the board. The Browns do with a hole at corner. They really just have to go the best defensive player available here, which in my opinion probably isn't Newsome. I really like Azeez Ojulari, who is the next pick, as you'll see. But you can't really go wrong with Newsome. He's a big physical corner, height, weight, speed guy. I think this would be a fine pick. Azeez Ojulari goes 27 to the Ravens. I think he's a perfect fit here. And as someone who really likes Ojulari, I'd love to see him go to Baltimore. I think this place makes a ton of sense for both sides. A little bit raw, but if there's one team who's going to develop him, it is the Baltimore Ravens, with a good track record of developing pass rushers. With Matt Judon probably gone, they need a replacement, and I think picking Azeez Ojulari would be a home run here at 27 for the Ravens. At 28, a guy who I really like, one of my favorite players in the draft, it's Terrace Marshall, the wide receiver out of LSU going to the New Orleans Saints. The Saints have done a good job this offseason with managing the cap, and although they're still under the cap, they are in a much better situation than they were, say, a week ago. I do think they could use some more help on offense for whoever the quarterback is going to be. Drew Brees retiring does not look like a sure thing anymore, but whether he's back or not, got to get more weapons, especially with Emmanuel Sanders out the door. I think this is really good value. 29, we have got ourselves a trade. The Miami Dolphins will be moving up. They traded down earlier. They ended up getting a very talented offensive player out of Alabama in Devontae Smith. Well, they're going to get another really good Alabama Crimson Tide offensive player and running back Najee Harris. The Dolphins will be receiving the 29th pick along with Green Bay's 6th rounder. The Packers will receive picks 36, 81, and a future 7. So if you really don't count the late picks, Green Bay is getting an early 2 and a mid 3 for a late 1, which is really good value in my opinion for the Packers. And for the Dolphins, I mean, you've gotten plenty of extra draft capital today. Why not move up and get a really, really good running back prospect in Najee Harris, who's going to be a great player right off the bat. Pair him up with his former college quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa, and have the dynamic trio of Tua, Najee, and Devontae Smith. I think this draft for the Dolphins has been an A+. At 30, the Bills select Jalen Mayfield, offensive tackle out of Michigan. For a while, this has been an easy spot to mock a linebacker, but with Matt Milano re-signing, I think, yesterday, that's not as likely. I think the Bills could still consider adding another linebacker, but with Milano back under contract, with Tremaine Edmonds likely needing a new deal soon, I don't think that's the route you go. The Bills are losing a few players on the offensive line. I think Mayfield has the upside to be a really good tackle. Could be a very solid guard early on as well. At 31, the Chiefs select Sam Cosmi, offensive tackle out of Texas. Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz are now gone. You have to protect Patrick Mahomes. We saw what happened in the Super Bowl when Mahomes had a level of backup offensive line in front of him, and it did not go well. So you have to invest in the offensive line. They picked Lucas Niang last year, who I think they really like, and I think he's a good prospect when healthy. So you have him at right tackle. You put Cosmi at left tackle. Boom. That solves your tackle problem. And then at 32, the Bucs have a number of different options. I think Travis Etienne here would be an interesting pick. If they really wanted to get crazy, they could pick Javonte Williams over Etienne. But I think they do need to improve the front seven a little bit. I have them selecting Joseph Osayad at Texas. Had a really good pro day the other day. He really tested well, and I think he'll probably end up being a first-round selection. I think this would be a nice pick here for the Bucs. Whether they bring back all of their free agent edge rushers or not, I think they could use another one. Now on to the second round, starting with Jacksonville here at 33. They have a major hole in the middle of their defensive line. I think they have to address that this offseason. And they get lucky because Christian Barmore out of Alabama falls out of the first round. And Jacksonville's not going to let him fall anymore. He will be the first pick of the second round. I think this is really good value for Jacksonville, and I think Barmore should be able to make an early impact. Jets at 34, you've got your franchise quarterback. You've got a new fun weapon for him. Why not add another one? Travis Etienne out of Clemson, a great running back prospect. He can provide you a lot as a runner And as a receiver, I think he's a perfect fit for the modern NFL, and I think he's going to be great very early in his NFL career as well. I think this is a great pick for the Jets. Now you have a dynamic trio of Zack Wilson, Travis Etienne, and Rashad Bateman. Just continue to supply Wilson with weapons and protection. At 35, I really thought about Javonte Williams here to the Falcons, but I don't think they want to pick two offensive skill position players in a row. And the linebacking board has really played out well. The only two off the board are Micah Parsons and Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, which means all of like the fringe late first, early second round linebackers are still on the board. Atlanta gets their choice, and they select Nick Bolton out of Missouri, a tough physical player. I think he could complement the very athletic Deion Jones pretty well. At 36, Eric Stokes, corner out of Georgia, going to the Green Bay Packers. I think this is a great pick for them. I really like Stokes. He ran a 4.27, I think, at his pro day. I don't know how accurate that time is, but that's the number I saw. But, I mean, he certainly helped himself. I think he should go in the first round. He's probably my corner number 4. I really like him a lot, and I've been high on him for a few months now. So I think this would be a great pick for them. And I think not only picking him here, but trading down, acquiring an extra third, I think this is really good here for the Packers. Jabril Cox at 37, another guy who I've really kind of hopped on the hype train for, and I think a lot of other people have kind of followed. Jabril Cox is a really intriguing player. Transfer from North Dakota State, had a great season this year at LSU. I think he could go in the first round, could be as high as the third linebacker off the board behind Parsons and JOK. And the Eagles need a lot of help at linebacker, even if they refuse to address it. Better now than never. Wyatt Davis, guard, Ohio State, to the Bengals. Just keep providing Joe Burrow some help. I think the Bengals are going to make a splash in the offseason, sign a big-time offensive lineman, maybe a guy like Joe Thuney. You get Penei Sewell at 5, and now you get Wyatt Davis here at 38. Osa Odighizuwa, one of my big sleepers in this class, defensive tackle out of UCLA to the Texans. I think this is around where he should go, maybe a little bit later, but I think most people view him currently as a 3rd to 4th round prospect. A little bit undersized, but the athleticism is definitely there. I think he has a lot of potential. Again, the Texans are really trying to build on the inside out. And then at 40, Denver with really good value here in Zaven Collins out of Tulsa. He's a big physical player, 6'2", 260, but he moves really well for his size, and I think this would be really, really good value in the early part of the second round for the Broncos. We've got ourselves another trade here at 41. I think the Lions are really going to be candidates to trade back multiple times in this draft. Considering they only have 2 day 3 picks, I think they'd like to add on that number. Kadarius Toney has kind of slipped, and I think Jacksonville's going to want to give Trevor Lawrence some weapons. So the Jags will move up 4 spots, giving the Lions pick 45 and their 5th rounder 145 in the process. I think that's a no-brainer move for Detroit. And for Jacksonville, you get a new fun toy for your quarterback. Kadarius Toney, a very unique playmaker. I think this will be a good pick for them. Rondale Moore out of Purdue going to the New York Giants. I think this will be a nice pick for them. They need more playmakers. Rondale Moore and Kadarius Toney, 2 of the more unique and polarizing players in this class, end up going right next to each other. The Dolphins, again, with a great selection here in Creed Humphrey out of Oklahoma, the talented center. Miami could use a center. They got this pick from San Francisco earlier in the video. And I think they're really getting a nice selection here, getting someone who can be a day 1 starter. Dylan Radune's offensive tackle, North Dakota State to the Cowboys. They need to improve the offensive line. The O-line is one of the better units in the NFL right now, but they're getting older. Tyron Smith has an injury history. You can't really trust him to stay on the field, so I think Dallas has to look at an offensive lineman early. I think Dylan Radune's would be a nice pick. Lions at 45 pick Jamin Davis, linebacker out of Kentucky. He would have been the pick at 41, so the Lions are pretty much adding a very high, I think the first pick in the 5th round for 3, essentially. Jamin Davis is a name who's really rising up the ranks. I think he's a really intriguing player. As a Lions fan, I'd be pretty happy with this. Levi Onwuzurike, interior defensive lineman out of Washington to the New England Patriots. They need a ton of help on offense, but I don't think they're only going to focus on offense. We know Bill Belichick loves building his defense up. I think they could use some more guys in the middle, and I think Onwuzurike would be a nice pick. So Javonte Williams is kind of fallen a little bit. I know people think he's going to go around this range. I think he's going to go earlier. I think he's right in that conversation with Najee Harris and Travis Etienne for the top backs in the class. And the Steelers need a running back, so they will be moving up 8 selections here, giving up their 4th rounder in the process to the LA Chargers. The Chargers have not made a pick yet, by the way, because they got Orlando Brown for their 1st round selection, and now they're moving down here for the Steelers to select Javonte Williams, who I think is going to be great right off the bat. I think this is a very nice pick for them. Then Raiders at 48 select Ronnie Perkins, edge rusher out of Oklahoma. Talented player, the Raiders need more guys off the edge. And I think Ronnie Perkins' name is really starting to build up in the draft community, and I think his stock has really risen in the past month or so. The Cardinals are in a very sticky situation here at corner, and they did not pick a corner in the 1st round since they moved down and selected Jalen Phillips. They're going to select Kelvin Joseph, another name who's really risen these past few months. I would pick Asante Samuel Jr. here personally, mainly because I'm a big Asante Samuel Jr. guy, but I think Kelvin Joseph here would be a fine pick as well. Baron Browning, linebacker, Ohio State to the Dolphins. Kyle Van Noy is gone. I think they would have looked at linebacker anyway, but now it's even more of a priority, and I think Baron Browning would be a nice pick here, kind of rounding out all of the fringe 1st-round linebackers. Davion Nixon, interior defensive lineman out of Iowa to the Denver Broncos. They got this pick earlier today from the Washington football team. Nixon had a great year this season for the Hawkeyes, and I think this is good value at 51. The Jets here at 52, they got this pick earlier today from the Bears in the Sam Darnold trade, and they select Joe Tryon, edge rusher out of the University of Washington. The Jets have really improved the offense, but they can't neglect the defense. They need more guys going after the quarterback. They've not had a great pass rush in a while, and I think Tryon would be a solid pick. Nico Collins, wide receiver, Michigan to the Titans. This is your Corey Davis replacement. I've had Nico Collins going to the Titans a lot in the 2nd round. I think it makes a ton of sense. A lot of similarities to his game and Corey Davis. I think this would be a good pick. Elijah Moore has kind of slipped down the board a little bit. I think he could certainly go earlier than this. But the Green Bay Packers are going to capitalize. They traded down from their 1st pick, and now they are going to move up. The Packers will be sending their 2nd rounder along with 173, which I think is in the 6th round, if my numbers are correct. So, no, I think that's actually a 5th rounder, my bad. So, Green Bay's 5th and 2nd going to the Colts to move up 8 spots, get Elijah Moore, get your very talented slot receiver. I think this draft is going really well for the Green Bay Packers. And as a Lions fan, that makes me sad. Chargers at 55. Great value here in Asante Samuel Jr. You got Orlando Brown using your 1st-round pick in that trade. Move down, add an extra 4. And now you got Asante Samuel Jr., who should not be on the board here in my opinion, but they're not complaining. And then Seattle at 56. They know Russ does not want to get hit anymore, or I guess less. I mean, it's not like you can go a full season without getting hit, but he wants to get hit less. The Seahawks know they need to build a better offensive line, and talent-wise, Landon Dickerson should be higher than this, but the center position isn't overly valuable coming off a torn ACL. That's why he falls here. But he's a really good player, and if he can stay healthy, then this would be a really good pick here for the Seahawks at 56. Somehow, someway, Liam Eichenberg has totally slipped through the cracks and has fallen to pick 57. The LA Rams are going to sprint this pick up to the commissioner. Eichenberg should not be on the board at 57. There were a number of spots I thought about him, but just didn't pick him. I think he could go in the 20s in round 1. But he just kind of gets unlucky based on how the board plays out. But, you know, who's not complaining? The Los Angeles Rams. This might be the steal of the draft. Tutu Atwell, wide receiver, Louisville to the Ravens. I think Tutu Atwell is a really intriguing player. The Ravens need more help on their offense. I wouldn't be surprised if they go out and sign a big name in free agency, say like a Kenny Golladay. I don't think they'll sign Juju Smith-Schuster, but I guess he would fit the category. But I do think they're going to look to draft someone fairly early as well, and I think Atwell would be a nice pick. Browns at 59 need to improve the linebacking core a little bit. I have them selecting Dylan Moses out of Alabama. Once a top prospect, although still a very good prospect, just does not have the same hype that he once did. Kind of disappointing this year at Alabama. He's been banged up as well. Elijah Molden, corner out of Washington to the Saints at 60. He's a little bit more of a nickel corner. I think he could transition and play the outside as well. Saints need help in the secondary. Whether they're able to hold on to Marshawn Lattimore for the long term or not, I think they need to add more corners. Bills at 61, they have a hole at corner, and they're going to select Aaron Robinson, another guy who's primarily a nickel, but I think could have an ability to play the outside as well. Buffalo does need a nickel, and I think they could use another wild side alongside Tre'Davious White. I think this would be a nice pick. Colts at 62, really good value. You move down 8 spots, you accumulate an extra 5th, and you still get Alex Leatherwood. I think Eichenberg probably would have been the pick had they stayed at 54, but Leatherwood is not much worse by any stretch. I think there's some people who probably have him ranked higher. Leatherwood is a very versatile player. I think he's probably more of a guard, to be honest, although he probably could play tackle. Maybe, we'll see. But I think the Colts are really a few pieces away. I think they could use one more offensive lineman and then maybe an extra receiver. Obviously, they got their corner earlier in Patrick Surtain. But I think the Colts are very close to being a Super Bowl contender. Chiefs at 63. They need help at their linebacking core. They're going to select Cameron McGrone out of the University of Michigan. I think this starts like the tier 3 of linebackers. I think tier 1 is Parsons and Owusu-Koramoah. Tier 2 is pretty much all the guys in between. And now Cam McGrone, I think this is fair value. And at 64, Michael Carter, running back, North Carolina to the Bucks. I think they are going to need another running back. I don't see Leonard Fournette returning because, well, there's not enough money for everyone. I think Fournette's going to get a pretty nice contract based on how he played in the postseason. And I think they're going to need someone, specifically a receiving threat, alongside Ronald Jones, who is not much of a receiving threat. I think Michael Carter would be a nice pick, although I'd probably pick Kenneth Gainwell here. I think he's more of a receiving threat. Michael Carter is still a really good prospect as well, so this wouldn't be a bad pick by any stretch for the Buccaneers. I just called Liam Eichenberg the steal of the draft, but that might be a lie, because Pat Freiermuth has fallen to the 3rd round, again, just based on how the board played out, but I don't think the Jaguars are complaining. They will be glad to pick him up. I have mocked Freiermuth with the Jaguars' second first-round pick at times. I think it's more likely he goes there than here, but again, just based on how the board played out, he falls to 65 and gets swooped up by Jacksonville. Javon Holland, safety, nickel corner out of Oregon to the Jets. He's very versatile. The Jets don't really have a big need at safety, but Marcus May is playing on the franchise tag. Ashton Davis still somewhat unproven, and Holland's versatile. He can do a lot of different things, and I think this would be a really good pick for them. We've got ourselves another trade with Pat Freiermuth falling down the board. Brevin Jordan has obviously also fallen down the board. And it was a big need at tight end, the New England Patriots. So they will be moving up from 96 to 67. The Texans will be receiving a 2022 4th-round pick in order to move down. So the Texans still are picking in the 3rd round this year, and they add an extra 4th. And for New England, you get a darn good prospect who should not be on the board here, but is. Brevin Jordan's a really, really good player. I think him and Freiermuth are two of the more underrated players in this class. All of the attention goes to Kyle Pitts, and deservedly so, because he's an absolute stud. But I think Pat Freiermuth and Brevin Jordan are both legit fringe first-round prospects. Richie Grant, safety out of UCF to the Falcons. This is really good value. Ricardo Allen and Keanu Neal both probably will not be returning next year, so Atlanta obviously has a big hole at both safety positions. I think this would be a nice pickup. At 69, nice. The Bengals select Ethio Melafonmu, corner out of Syracuse. I think he could go higher than this. I think there's a lot of second-round buzz with him, but he falls to the 3rd round. Bengals, I think, could use an extra corner, whether William Jackson sticks around or not. At 70, Jackson Carmen, offensive lineman out of Clemson. The Eagles' offensive line is solid, but it's getting older and they cannot stay healthy. Carmen can play tackle as well as guard, which I think makes him super intriguing. I think this will be a nice pick for them. James Hudson, offensive tackle, Cincinnati to the Broncos. They have really improved their defense today, but I think they could use some help in the offensive line. Garrett Bowles had a really good season this past year, but they're going to need some more help on the offensive line. Add another tackle. James Hudson, a little bit raw, but if you can develop him, I think he could be real good. And then the Lions, they need help in the middle of the defense bad. So they select Ellen McNeil, interior defensive lineman out of NC State. There are a lot of interior defensive linemen who go in this range. I have McNeil as the pick, but it could be multiple other different options. The Carolina Panthers can now actually make a selection. They traded their first 2 picks along with a lot of other stuff for Desean Watson, which again I think is a good move for Carolina. And now they get another opportunity to actually pick players. And with this selection, I have them selecting Tyson Campbell, corner out of Georgia. I think this is very nice value. They do need help at the cornerback position. I think this will be a good pick here in the 3rd round. Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver USC to the Washington football team. Washington has only made one pick today, and it's a pick that might not help them win next year in Trey Lance. And I think Washington really wants to be good next season. So I think they're really going to draft a lot of players going forward who are going to make early impacts. And I think Amon-Ra St. Brown, mainly coming out of the slot, can do just that. Tommy Togiai, interior defensive lineman at Ohio State, to the Dallas Cowboys. I think they could use some more help in the middle. Tristan Hill has not really panned out, and I think Togiai would be a solid selection. Carlos Basham, edge rusher, Wake Forest, to the Giants. They need some more bodies going after the quarterback. They did franchise tag Leonard Williams, but he's not an edge rusher. He's an interior defensive lineman. I think he could use some more edge help. Josh Myers, center, Ohio State, to the Chargers. I think it's been 3 straight mock drafts where I've had the Chargers picking Josh Myers here at 77. It makes a lot of sense. Myers is in that second tier of centers behind guys like Creed Humphrey and Landon Dickerson. I think here in the 3rd round is fair value. Trey Smith, offensive guard, Tennessee, to the Vikings. He's a super talented player. If he can stay healthy, I think he'll be really good. But that's just a question. Can he stay healthy? Kenneth Gainwell, running back, Memphis, to the Cardinals. I think they could use some more juice in their backfield. Kenny Gainwell, coming from Memphis, does have a lot of similarities to another recent Memphis running back, Antonio Gibson, who had a great rookie season last year for the Washington football team. And I think Kenny Gainwell is going to be a really, really good pro. And then Quinn Miners, the hottest name right now in the draft community, the guard from Wisconsin, Whitewater. What is that, Division 3? Type of Division 2. I'm pretty sure it's Division 3. So I think he'll be the 2nd Division 3 player all time to be drafted. The first one, Ali Marpette, in the 2nd round around 5 years ago. That pick has proven to be a very good one. Marpette is one of the better starting guards in the NFL. A big piece to the Bucs Super Bowl run this past season. Miners really stood out at the Senior Bowl. I think that's where people really got introduced to him. He had a very good pro day. He's super athletic, and the draft community is just absolutely raving over this player right now, and I think Quinn Miners will, when it's all said and done, end up as a day 2 selection. The Raiders have cut Gabe Jackson. Richie Incognito is gone. Trent Brown is gone. Their offensive line is going to look a lot different next year, so they have to address the O-line early and often. I think Miners would be a solid pick. One of the more polarizing players in this draft class is Walker Little out of Stanford, the offensive tackle. Green Bay got this pick earlier today for Miami when they traded up for Najee Harris. And I had the Packers selecting Walker Little. I think he could go a lot higher than this, but he's such a risky pick. Early on in his career at Stanford, he looked like he was going to be a top 10 draft pick, but he's really not played for the most part at all the past 2 years. He opted out this past season. The year before, he was injured most of the year, so we have not seen him in a while. But when he has played, for the most part, he's been really good, and he could end up as a very, very good tackle in the 3rd round. It's really worth a shot here. David Bakhtiari coming off a serious injury, not getting any younger, and they could use another tackle alongside Bakhtiari anyway. So I think getting a guy like Walker Little, who has a lot of upside, I think would be a really good pick here. Another offensive tackle with a lot of potential is Spencer Brown out of Northern Iowa, going to the Washington football team. Washington has to have their primary focus on offense. Obviously, they need quarterback, they need receiver, and they need offensive line, and they have addressed all 3 of those things today. Omaree Rodgers to the Bears is a great pick. They look like they've struck gold on one of their day 3 picks last year in wide receiver Darnell Mooney, and I think this is really good value here as well. The draft community really seems to have a consensus that Omaree Rodgers is going to be a steal and he's super underrated. And to be honest, he's not underrated because now everybody knows that he's good. But I do think this is really good value. I don't think he should fall this far, but the Bears are going to pick him up, get some more weapons for Sam Darnold. Benjamin St-Juste, corner out of Minnesota, to the Eagles. They do need a lot of help pretty much everywhere, including corner. They acquired Darius Slay last offseason, but they're going to need more than that. And I think Ben St-Juste, who's been a big riser the past month or two, would be a solid pick. Jay Tufele, interior defensive lineman out of USC, to the Titans. This is really good value. His stock has kind of slipped since the start of draft season. He looked like likely late 1st round pick, early 2nd rounder. He's fallen a little bit, mainly due to the rise of other interior defensive linemen, but Titans aren't going to complain. This is nice value in the 3rd. Israel Mukuamu, one of the most intriguing players in this class, in my opinion. Corner out of South Carolina, going to the Jets. This guy is 6'3". He's long, lean, physical, and I think he's a really interesting player. I think this will be a solid pick by the Jets. Kyle Trask, quarterback out of Florida to the Steelers. I don't think I've had Kyle Trask going ever in the first 3 rounds. Actually, I think I might have had him going to San Francisco in like the 2nd round in one of my first mock drafts. But other than that, we have not seen a lot of Kyle Trask. And the more I think about it, I don't think Kyle Trask is going to fall past day 2. The Steelers do not have their long-term quarterback on the roster. And with Kyle Trask here, I could see them totally taking a shot. At pick 88, the Detroit Lions select Hamza Nasir-Ladin, safety linebacker hybrid out of Florida State. I love this pick. I've been high on Hamza Nasir-Ladin for a very long time. If the Lions picked him, I would be ecstatic. I think he's a really talented player, a box safety who can really do a bunch of different things on the defense. Does have some medical question marks, but if he stays healthy, he's going to be a stud. Just a great pick by the Lions. We will be doing compensatory picks, so this is not the last slide. The next one's going to be the last one. Starting at 89, Patrick Jones, the second edge rusher out of Pittsburgh to the Browns. He's a very explosive player. Had a solid Senior Bowl. The Browns could use some more pass rushing help. Paris Ford, safety out of Pittsburgh to the Vikings. His stock has slipped a little bit this year. I could totally still see him going in day 2, as I do here to the Vikings. Anthony Harris probably not going to return, so I think they could use a new safety. De'Ami Brown, one of my sleepers, wide receiver out of UNC, going to the Cleveland Browns. I think he's one of the most underrated players in this class. Not a lot of people are talking about him, but I think he's real good. This will be a nice pick for the Browns, add in another talented playmaker to the offense. Chaz Surratt, linebacker, North Carolina, to the Green Bay Packers. They need more help at linebacker. That's one of their bigger weaknesses at the moment. And I think Surratt would be a solid pick. Aaron Banks, guard, Notre Dame, to the Bills. They just re-signed Matt Milano not too long ago, and as I'm recording this, they re-signed Darrell Williams around an hour ago. I do still think they could use some more help on the offensive line, and they did that today by adding Jalen Mayfield and Aaron Banks. Seth Williams, wide receiver, Auburn to the Chiefs. He's one of the more under-the-radar players at the moment, but I think he's really good. And I think the Chiefs could use some more receiving help. Sammy Watkins, DeMarcus Robinson, they're not really it. They're also not under contract next year. So add in another threat at the receiver position along with Tyreek Hill and Mecole Hardman. Marlon Tuipulotu, interior defensive lineman out of USC, going to the Bucks. They need someone else in the middle there. Ndamukong Suh probably gone. So I think adding a guy like Tuipulotu would be a pretty solid selection for the defending champs. Final 10 picks of the day, the compensatory selections here in the 3rd round. Starting with the Texans at 96. They traded for this pick earlier in the day when New England moved up to the top of the 3rd round to select the tight end Brevin Jordan. That was a really good move for New England, and I think this is a great move for the Texans as well because they're getting a great value pick in Tylan Wallace. I know I said that they should build on the inside out, but you also have to make sure you're getting really good value, and Tylan Wallace at 96 is exactly that. Hamilcar Rashed Jr., edge rusher, Oregon State to the Chargers. I think they could use some more pass rush. Melvin Ingram not under contract for this upcoming season. Kellen Mond, quarterback, Texas A&M to the New Orleans Saints. I don't think I've had the Saints picking a quarterback really at all in my mock drafts. Maybe I had them picking Mac Jones in the 1st round like in January, but I don't even think I've had Kellen Mond really in any of my mock drafts at all. I know I've had Jamie Newman in my past few, but instead of Jamie Newman in the 3rd round, I have Trask and Mond. Kellen Mond's a very weird player, super inconsistent at Texas, but he had some really good moments there. He was very solid as a senior, and Jameis Winston returning does not look like a slam dunk. Not that Kellen Mond would start day 1, but, you know, it's worth a shot. Late 3rd round, might as well try to heave it up. Hope you get lucky. Tommy Tremble, tight end Notre Dame to the Dallas Cowboys. I think they could use another tight end. Hasn't really been the same since prime Jason Witten left. Dalton Schultz is, nothing special. So I think adding another one in Trumbull would be useful. At 100, Shaun Wade, corner out of Ohio State to the Tennessee Titans. Wade obviously had a pretty disaster of a season by moving to the outside with Jeff Okudah and Damon Arnett gone. That certainly did not work out, but I still think he'll probably go in day 2. Paulson Adebo, corner, Stanford to the LA Rams. The Rams do a really good job of developing mid-round defensive backs, And they have a lot of those guys as free agents this offseason who they're not going to be able to pay. So now it's time to replenish. And I think Adebo would be a nice pick. 3 straight corners. As at 102, I had the Niners selecting Elijah Griffin out of USC. Very solid player. I think his name is rising a little bit. As of recent, I could see him being a late day 2, early day 3 pick. Peyton Turner, edge rusher, Houston, the Rams. They need more bodies going after the quarterback. Aaron Donald's sensational, but it can't just be him. Talanoa Hufanga, safety at USC. That's a really fun name to say. Going to the Baltimore Ravens, I think they could use some more pieces in the secondary. I really like Deshaun Elliott. I think he's going to be really good, but I think they could use some more safeties. Chuck Clark, solid, but you can never have too many. Then at 105, the final pick of the day, Quincy Roche, the edge rusher out of Miami to the Saints. This is really strong value here to round out the 3rd round. I think this would be a very nice pick for the Saints. And that's how we're going to conclude today's mock draft. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know how you thought I did for your teams in the comments below. What would you do differently? I think I'm probably going to have the big board video out pretty soon. Hopefully next weekend. That's my goal. So make sure to stay tuned for that. And as always, have a good one. I'm out. Peace.